your cheek. She goes, oh, didn't he come with that? I'm like, no.
Oh.
She's like, oh, I thought he did. I said, well, it's kind of alarming to me that for him to have hit his face that hard, he would have
Right,
cried. How do you not know that?
right, right. How old is
But
Jacob?
anyway, I'm sorry.
How old is Jacob?
He is 14 months.
Oh wow. Okay, right, right.
Hmm.
So he can't really kind of inform you on what happened.
No, he can't say. So I just kind of laughed. I mean, he loves going there, and she's good with them, but I just kind of laughed. I was like, oh, Miss Joyce is beating you up again.
Yeah.
I was like, I won't call defects this time because it's small, but next time we're going to have to call them.
Right. No, totally.
So,
Yeah.
but
I
I
wouldn't
mean, they
know any of that.
fall.
I've got girls. I've got 4 girls, so I never got into that whole roughhousing boy kind of stuff. So
Yeah, see, we can't figure the girl thing out, so we've got 3 boys.
God no, I can't figure out the boy thing. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I will eventually have 4 son-in-laws, so I pray to God that I'll get my fulfill of men at that point.
Yeah, you just want good ones. That's what we all
Exactly.
pray for. Good
That's
ones.
exactly. So, all right. So why don't you kind of bring me up to speed as to what you decompressed over our last meeting from Monday?
To be honest, because I'm always total transparent, I haven't had an opportunity to listen to it as much as I would have liked to. I've listened to it one time. I did find myself, though, in a couple conversations I had a couple clients, too, in particular, that called me this week, and they were complimenting me on the way I did business and how I handled myself, and I did shift the conversation. And one of
Good.
the gentlemen, his name was Pablo, and I said, Pablo, you know what? That means so much to me. And all I ask is that you go back and let Jeff know what a great experience you're having working with us. If you can do that for me, I would be forever grateful. And he was like, oh my God, absolutely. I'll call him when I get off the phone.
Awesome. And did you follow up with Jeff?
No, I did not.
One of the great things to do in that work, because I've never really believed that things just happen by accident. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we miss out on creating moments that really help amplify our business. So whenever I had to do that, I always gave them about 24 hours, and I would follow back up with a referral. So in this case, it was Jeff. I would call Jeff and go, hey, Jeff, this is Holly. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I got a call from Pablo yesterday. He was so happy with us and so positive and so thrilled that he was going to call you and say, thank you. You get a chance to do that yet.
Perfect. I'll do that. Because I talked to him
And
last night. It was like late yesterday afternoon.
right, and so what ends up happening is your goal in that conversation with Pablo is to make sure those connections are made so that Jeff, whether it's done solicited or unsolicited, you're making an effort to make sure that everybody's aware of your value. And so let me kind of break down what I believe are the 3 different mindsets that people have in business that will
Okay.
help you understand how important this is. So I'm
Okay.
recording the call again. This will be
Perfect.
really, really an easy conversation. It won't be nearly as heavy as Monday. So there are 3 types of mindsets that we have in business. There's the giver, there's the taker, and then there's the matcher. I think you can figure out which mindset most people are just by talking about it. Which of those 3 mindsets, being the giver, the matcher, or the taker, do you believe is the one that is the least successful in business in our industry?
The taker.
Okay. If I told you that the taker was not the least successful, would that surprise you?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the giver.
Is the least successful?
The least successful, and here's why. The giver is the type of person, which is kind of what we all fall victim to. We are all givers by nature. That's the nature of our business. That's the nature of why we're in this business. The giver is the person that gives of themselves unconditionally over and over and over and over again, and then gets nothing in return. Like they pour their heart and soul into situations, they go above and beyond the call of duty, hoping that they get something in return. And a lot of times we do this transaction to get paid, but we would always love something more. Like we want to be validated, we want to be acknowledged, and many of us don't want gifts or balloons or thank you cards. What we all really crave is a referral. We all really crave that endorsement to somebody that they care about because that fulfills our validation. You kind of agree to that?
Mm-hmm.
when you get a referral from a client who's done business with you, it really kind of solidifies that what you're doing and how you're doing it is really spot on. Like it's really echoing really loudly to a lot of different people. At least that's how I looked at my business.
Okay.
So the giver eventually, if they don't get enough of what they're seeking, usually ends up becoming very disgruntled and very unpassionate in relationship to their business. So the giver ends up being the one that's the least successful. The matcher kind of goes up and down. The taker takes what they can get, and they're all mildly successful. But the one mindset that is also the most and highest successful is also the giver, but with one caveat. The giver has to have a request. The giver who gives of themselves and follows it through with a request is also the most successful in business, because you've now captured the need and the quality of your business at the highest level. One is the quality, which is you know that there are many people in our industry that give like you give. There's not many people in the industry that do business the way that you do. And you know what you have is very valuable, and it's kind of a prize. A client to do business with Holly Walther is kind of a big deal. But the client doesn't know that. But the client will know that once they go through the process with you. So as you go through the process, what we talked about last week was being able to articulate your value and really taking what you do already, which is the giving part, because you guys go above and beyond, and then just following it up with a request. And that's what you practiced the other, in that conversation with Pablo. You're not leaving anything to chance anymore. Every conversation that you enter into, when you receive a thank you or a wow or some type of statement during the process, or your team does, that's an acknowledgement of your team giving, and giving at a high level to the point where people recognize it. The difference is that you can close the door on that transaction or that relationship by saying, no problem, my pleasure, glad to help, or you can follow it through with a request, which is, hey, thanks for noticing. We count on people just you to refer us to the people you care about. That's how we are able to deliver such a level of service, so that you feel compelled to want to thank us. Can you promise us that you won't keep us a secret?
Promise.
What you're doing is taking what you do, and you're not leaving it to accident. You're not leaving it to hopium. You're really taking the conversation and being very deliberate and very articulate with what your language is in your business. You know that if you provide such a high level of service and your quality is beyond what most people can provide, we can't just assume the consumer is going to recognize it or the realtors are going to recognize it. So we have to take that conversation to another level and go, I'm not going to leave this stuff to chance. I'm literally going to make sure that I amplify the relationship, that I capitalize on that moment, and turn that into the best possible referable opportunity that I can create. And that's why having your team speak the way that you speak and having the team capitalize on those moments is so vital, because they're the ones that are going to have more of those thank you conversations, and it creates a culture in the team that provides that enthusiasm around it, and it allows you to look at your team and decide what the benchmarks can be, like I always did current client referrals. If I wasn't getting the volume of current client referrals that was pretty normal or custom in my practice, I knew that the conversations weren't being had. And every time I dug into that, I was validated. They weren't having the conversation. So they weren't feeling it, or they weren't doing it, or they just were so busy they didn't have time. And that's when we had to slow down and realize the purpose of what you do is not to just disseminate information. The purpose of what you do, and the reason you're on this team and not somebody else, is because you have the ability to leverage the relationship and create those referable moments. You see how the conversation from Monday kind of rolls into this, and why the importance of setting the stage is so important. Because as a giving mortgage practice, as a practice that prides themselves on value and service and quality, you can't just simply leave it to accident that your clients are going to become your raving fans. The statistics that I've found in my practice, and I think it's pretty consistent across the board, is that 20% of your database or 20% of your clients will refer you just because they will. They're those social mavens. They're the voices of their social circle. That's just who they are. Another 20% just won't because they're more introverted and less likely just to talk about their experiences with anything in life, let alone you and what you've provided them. But what that leaves is about a 60% window of people who I would consider to be my quote-unquote friends in the business, who if I didn't ask them for help, shame on me. But if I asked them for help, they would be more than happy to assist me because I believe genuinely most people want to help others that make their lives better. And you make their lives better by putting them through a process that, for a lack of a better term, is more streamlined, it is more caring, it is more giving, and is much more customer relationship oriented than what they would experience at a big bank or at a discount shop on the internet. Fair?
Fair. Absolutely.
So the point of it is that when you communicate to your clients through the process, you're not simply communicating the transaction anymore. You're communicating the transaction to lead you to referable moments, which are the moments they say thank you to you, and you're capitalizing on it by being a giving branch or a giving practice with a request.
Got it.
And it's really easy because when you find value in something, you're glad to talk about it if you're asked to do so. You genuinely feel compelled to want to repay somebody for making you feel like you're getting great service or great value. And if your team does that consistently, it becomes very easy to have the conversation. If the stage was set properly in the beginning, it makes it even easier. If the stage isn't set, it still works, but it's not going to be nearly as effective. But the more that your team gets acclimated to having that conversation, and it's brought into the conversation in the very beginning of your relationship, it becomes consistent through the process to where it works. And let me give you an example. This is a real-world example that just happened months ago with Denise, my wife. So I have a past client. His name is Constantine, who referred me one of his clients. One of his coworkers, and his wife and him are this client. And I told Denise that I wanted to sit on the meeting and show her how I used to do my 15-minute presentation. She's like, great. No. So they came into the office, and I did my 15-minute presentation, and I left. He's handled the rest of the process. And she came back into my office at the meeting and said, so how did it go? She goes, I don't know. I was you kind of were over the top a little bit. Like, you really laid thick. And I said, yeah, I know I did. I laid it out thick for a reason. I said, promise us, as you go through the process, please just make sure that you find them not to keep you a secret. She agreed. Fast forward 5 days, they go to closing. At the closing table, the client, Peter ends up coming to the closing table with a referral for a $500,000 house for Denise. So she gets a $500,000 purchase transaction from this client who originally came from Constantine. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I asked Denise, I said, that's fantastic. I said, so let me ask you something. Do you think you would have gotten the referral from Peter had I not set the stage in the beginning? She goes, I don't know, maybe. So I say, let's just put it at a 50-50, okay? So let's say I didn't do that presentation, but you did an exceptional job like you did during the process. Do you think you'd have gotten a referral? She goes, I don't know. I go, well, let's say 50-50 there. I said, so what happens if I did the presentation the way I did and you did a horrible job being a loan officer? Would you have gotten a referral? She goes, absolutely not. I go, okay, well, that's fair. I said, now let's assume that I didn't do the presentation. Let's say I didn't do the presentation, and why did my brain just reset? She did.
She did a terrible job.
And, yeah, and let's say I didn't. Let's say I did do the presentation, and you did do a great job being an LO, which is what happened. What do you think is the likelihood of getting a referral? She goes, well, it's 100%. We got one. I said, now doesn't it beg to question whether or not, if you don't set the stage up front, there's a 50-50 shot that you have a chance of getting a referral. But if you set the stage up front and you do a great job as an LO, you're almost guaranteed that that client will advocate you to the people they care about at least 60% of the time.
Right.
So the reason that that analogy is so vitally important, at least in my perspective, is that if you don't set the stage, there's the possibility that a client's not going to understand why you keep asking them not to keep you a secret, because that's not why they agreed to do business with you. They agreed to do business with you because you promised them an interest rate, a closing date, and fees. That's it. But if you are able to set the stage and come to the agreement that you will commit to doing this stuff, but they have to commit to referring you to somebody they think about, you will find that that is more acceptable to you than you could possibly imagine. And if it's followed through with a really high level of service to the process and the reminders, 60% more opportunities will be created just by having those conversations.
What percentage do you think of clients that you see, like if you had 10 closings per month as an example, were you capturing like 60, a referral from 60% of those?
No, I was getting 30 to 35%.
Okay. Which anything is good. I mean, anything's better than not doing it at all. I was just.
It was a 30 to 35 conversion ratio. So
what
out of
do
every
you?
10% that I had in the process, and that next process means if I had pulled their credit, I wasn't counting them. If I had actually taken docs from them and they were a pre-approval, and they were actively out shopping, and I had met with them or some variation of that, I had that conversation, and those were the ones that I was tracking. So
Were you having most of these conversations face to face?
I was, yes, because that's where my practice was. That's where my practice was really successful. But I totally understand that in this marketplace, that doesn't happen. But if you're trying to increase your ability to create current client relationships and to get them to refer you, you have to be even more deliberate with your conversation, or have that face-to-face presentation in order to be as successful. I was never successful at doing it if I didn't meet with my clients face-to-face. My greatest strength is belly to belly.
Yeah. Well, but where, the way Metro Atlanta is set up, my clients can be 30 miles away, or they could be 10 miles away, and it'd be a 2-hour drive because of traffic.
Because that highway is a mess.
Yeah, so I just have to be, that's where we just have to be really good on the phone, because I probably meet 99% of, probably 98% of my clients at the closing table. And now with us getting busier, I can't be at every closing. If we're doing 40 transactions a month, I can't be at 40 closings.
And to be honest, I never went to my closings. Later in my, but probably the better half of the last maybe 9 years, I never went to my closings. And that was because I instilled a touch point that was on the actual clear to close, or upon a HUD. I was calling my client, going over all the numbers with them. Going to the closing for me was trying to solicit the business from the listing agent. If I had not won the listing agent over before closing, I wasn't going. And my realtors that I worked with didn't need me at closing because they knew what would happen. They knew what was, they knew what was going to happen at the closing anyway, so me being there was really.
Right. Well, and that's something we're going to have to restructure, but, to like the one I went to today, I had never met the clients because, see, I don't have that opportunity to meet them at the front. So a lot of times I'll go if I can, if I really like them or think they'd be a great referral source for me. Right. And then, like, when I was sitting there, the attorney kept coming in saying, we don't have the funds. Your lender didn't send the money.
I hate when they do that. I can't believe it.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, we did. You probably got it yesterday. Are you looking at today's wire or yesterday's wire? Oh, yeah. They sent it yesterday? So, it's just all those little, but, that's definitely, there's no way I'm going to have to phase it out, so.
Look at the conversations that pre the closing. There's a good chance that your title agent is going to show up and say that their money isn't there. We wire the money a day in advance, and I always would tell my agents, and they always knew what to expect, but I would always go over these challenges with my client because that was the value conversation that I had. It wasn't my
right.
It was me. And it was my process worked like I met with my clients, or I had 5 touch points through the process that I was personally involved with my files. The initial phone call, the face-to-face meeting, which took me 15 minutes so I could do my doctor-nurse relationship, and then I turned it over to my team. And then I would call them at the appraisal, when we got the appraisal in, when we got the approval in, and then when we finally got the HUD. And so my goal was during those 5 points, that's when I felt like it was the most likely that I was going to be able to orchestrate a thank you or a wow or an appreciative statement, which allowed me to echo the message of thanks for noticing the secret. But in that
Got it.
call with the closing, I was always, or my team would always call them and go, these are some of the things that you can expect to have happen tomorrow. The title agent may or may not know how to do what they're supposed to do, and we do things a little differently. There's a chance that they're going to be saying that the money's not there, the funds aren't there. Typically what happens is the money's arrived the day before and they don't know where to find it. If that happens, the agent that'll be working with you will be able to track that down for you. Otherwise, they'll be giving us a call, but I do not want you to stress out over it because we have never had a closing go without funding. And so I would always have those preemptive conversations to set the stage, because in the beginning, I always promised my clients that they would get some things from me, and the first one was I was always going to be their consultant, and I was always going to do a really good job of managing their expectations. And I did that by always providing value, not just transmitting information. You see so many numbers for a HUD, and then you go over what the potential challenges are going to be or what it could look like. If nothing goes wrong, you look like a hero. But if something does go wrong, they feel prepared, and it thus amplifies your relationship not only with the agent, but with the client, because you come across as being a high-level professional.
So what challenges were you pointing out?
Oh, at the closing? Oh.
Uh-huh.
Closing,
Because I can't, I mean, the only challenges that I would point out would be all things that would be us. If the attorney doesn't send the funding docs right away, it's going to take us forever to review.
You could come up with, I think I had like 7 or 8 of them. If we did a closing first thing in the morning, they were never always fully apprised of all the documents. Maybe they didn't have the paperwork ready. You might be sitting there for longer than you expected. If it was at the end of the day, understand that 1 closings a day.
Things go late.
So they go late, or they domino, or the closer just doesn't care. They've had a long, rough day. They're beat up. They're just in front of you. You're not going to understand what they're saying. Please just understand that it's not a reflection of you or the business. It's just a reflection of them as a person. If the title company was somebody that I didn't know, I would definitely give it up, or I may even show up. But most of the title companies around our town, so I knew who was going to be to the closings and so forth. So there wasn't really anything major, but the times that something did come up, it was really because the buyer and the seller had some major issue arise, like when they did the walkthrough an hour before closing. Or
Got it. Okay.
There was all these personality conflicts, these challenges that would arise. Most of the time, it was A, we had funding there and the title company couldn't find. B, the title rep who was doing the closing wasn't a very good closer, which causes a lot of problems. And there were times when we messed up. And then when it was our fault that we messed up, I got on and I jumped into it and I took care of it. There were times I wouldn't balance because the title company didn't know how to do their job, or their closer room wasn't balancing the HUD correctly, or they were late getting our docs. And mind you, all 2012 and earlier, so I wasn't dealing with TRID and all that stuff like we do today.
Right.
So it was an animal I know you can relate to, but it was just different. So
right.
the thing of it is that if you can't make it to your closings or can't go to all of them, you still have the relationship on a high note, just make a point of making that call and provide your clients with a list of things that could go wrong and spend an extra 10 to 15 minutes just kind of giving them a heads up of what be that consultant, which then ends the relationship on a high note, and it gives you a chance to say, over time, please understand, we do a really good job of navigating the process all the way through to closing. And they'll thank you, and they'll appreciate you up to that point. And we know you've appreciated up to this point. Please, we're counting on you. Remember, you made that commitment to us in the beginning that you were the first people you care about. We're counting on you so we can continue to deliver this level of service to them so that they come back to you and thank you, just like you went back to Jeff and Pablo and said thank you.
Perfect.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I just listen and I'm processing what you said, saying, okay, now how do I incorporate all that?
It really is just being intentional, writing out the script and making sure that every time you get on the phone that you stop doing what you used to do and just exactly this part of the process in the beginning before you do anything else. And then everything else can go as planned. I mean, your business does really well in its current status. But if you're looking at increasing this pillar, what I call pillars of your business, because you have your realtor pillar, you have your affiliated relationship pillar. For me, it was my current client pillar, my past client pillar, my realtor pillar, affiliated relationship I manage those 4 relationship pillars differently. But if you want to increase your current client referrals and you want to increase your ability to gain higher quality leads, and you don't want to have to lean on realtors every day of the week, the best way
Right.
to that large number of clientele that you get and realize that every one client that becomes a raving fan, they're going to go tell 10 people. You do that for 6 months straight, Holly, you've got an army of people out there talking to the people they care about, and you will be amazed at how much more business you get just by asking.
Right. Yeah, then it's how the hell am I going to get that done? No, just kidding. I'll figure. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning working because Michelle's been out, so my brain, I'm just like, okay, I'm just trying to process. Okay. But no, we'll get it.
This is something that's going to take weeks for you to get. It's going to click at points. It's not going to click at points. But all I'm going to ask you is this. You don't have to re-listen to the voice, the replays. It's not. What I'm asking you to do is understand the message. The message is really simple. Holly, you are a giver that now has to have a request. I don't care how you do it. I don't care when you do it. It's better than nothing right now. What I'm giving you is an ideal situation to shoot for, but the truth is that if every time you hear the word thank you from a client and you do that intentionally, ask them for a favor, and that is to just refer me to somebody in your life that you care about, please. We're counting on you. If you just simply took that message and made your team say it every time they heard the word thank you or something like that coming out of the phone from your clients or your realtors, that would be just a huge step forward. Huge. Because right now you're not.
Right. No, we're not at all.
And if you ask people for help, 60% of them will gladly do it. It may not be immediate, but the more you tell it, the more you become comfortable with it, the greater the chances are, because then it becomes first game. I mean, you do 50 closings a month, and then in 6 months you've got 300 people that are actively out there talking about you. And the cool part is, and I never thought that this was possible. It blew my mind away. I still get clients, even in the last week. They're getting marketed to by a gentleman that runs my database, but my wife Denise gets the referrals that I get. I get clients calling me who I haven't talked to in 5 years. Says, I remember your business was referred to you. Here's somebody who wants you to go. I'd like to come back to you because I like the way you dealt with me the last time. It's that, but people remember. I mean, that cliche, Holly. People will never remember what you said, but they will all remember what?
How you made them feel.
Oh, that's what the request is. It's a feeling statement. They don't remember what it is that you're doing. They just remember that they felt really good doing it with you, and they will remember that you asked them for help.
So, like, if I said, hey, I'm calling, hey, Sally, Agent Sally, because like Sarah, I was listening to Sarah, today, she calls every week and does the pipeline update, like, hey, Sally, this is Sarah. Holly asked me to give you a call. We're handling the financing on your listing at 123 Prequal Street. Just wanted to touch base, make sure you don't have any questions for us, and get any feedback on how the process is going for you. Oh my God, you guys are great. You call every week. Sarah says, what? Thank you. I appreciate you noticing.
Sarah says,
could you do me a favor if you think of anyone that that you love and care about that could benefit from our services? Would you give them our name?
You got to be careful because the listing agent doesn't know who you are. Like you haven't created that agreement with them. So the conversation on a listing agent call would be, so what did you say the listing agent's name was? Your
just say Sally. It doesn't matter.
Hey, Sally. Thanks for noticing. Holly and I pride ourselves in our ability to provide a high level of communication to our clients. We would love to showcase with you how we handle amplifying the relationship between the client and the realtor. If you ever are interested in learning how you could grow your business by working with us, we'd love a chance to sit down and meet with you. And I asked Holly to follow up with you.
Got it. Okay.
The comment that I'm giving you, that thank you for noticing and turning it into please refer us to the people you care about, has to be an agreement that you've had with a
Got
client
it.
that you see
Those
what
are
I'm
more
saying?
for clients that are in process.
Clients and a constant reminder for your realtors.
Got
But the
it.
clients, absolutely. But the listing agent, the goal is, thanks for noticing. We would love to showcase with you how we're able to provide a level of service that actually amplifies your relationship with your client. And we believe that there's not another lender out there that provides this layer of service. If you're interested in learning how we do it with other agents, we would be honored at the chance to talk to you.
Got it. Okay.
You kind of get
So
how
there
it
really
fits.
needs to be three different scripts or scenarios they need to memorize or need to understand and be able to relay. One at the beginning of the conversation when they're an initial lead, then in the process with referral partners.
Because a listing agent, you can always, on the very first phone call, you set the stage. You know, Sarah calls up Sally and says, hey, just want to let you know that we provide our business is a completely referred practice, and we would love to show you how we do things because we are really good at cultivating relationships with our clients and amplifying relationships with the realtor. Through the course of the process, we're almost guaranteeing you that you will be highly impressed with our service. And just to let you know, one of our goals throughout this process is to have you be so thrilled with us that you'd want to meet with us.
Okay.
Because that's really what you're after. I mean, the reason you're calling and following up the listing agent is to impress them enough to have them give you business. Well, don't take it for chance. Set the stage up in the beginning. Tell the listing agent blatantly that your follow-up process is designed to help amplify the relationship between the client and the realtor, and that you will be doing this to help them with their listing agent, and call them out on it. I'm sure your lender right now provides you this high level of service, but if by chance they don't, please let me know if we could sit down and meet with you to show you how we can help you increase your business just by working with us. Which is
Got
true,
it.
right?
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does.
Not really complicated, just takes a little bit of a mind and getting used
Just
to repeating.
gotta, it's like reading your goals every morning. You just gotta keep familiarizing yourself with the system so then it comes second nature. Right now it's just foreign.
Right, so if you tell your team, daily team meetings, we are a branch, we are a mortgage practice that give, and we do that perfectly now. And now what we're going to be is a branch, but we're going to do it with a request. Here's what we're going to start doing. I want everybody on this call, the moment they hear the word thank, I don't want you to say anything other than thanks for noting. We count on people just like you to refer us to the people they care about. I don't care if it's the listing agent right now. I don't care if it's the buyer, the seller, the title. It doesn't matter. I just want them to start getting used to being conditioned to hear the word thank you and then responding. And with that, with that response, so it's not canned, that it's more conversational, it's more authentic. Because that's really
Got
what your
it.
team is striving for. Your team
Right.
is not striving to close loans. Your team is striving to keep your business afloat and growing through the acts that they do every single day. But instead of just hoping that everybody notices, you're going to make it a conversation and you're going to demand it from people. And it's okay to demand it because, frankly, nobody's doing anything that they wouldn't do in the first place. You're just
Right.
helping them see what you need them to do.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes people get the perception that we're so busy or that we have so much that if we don't ask for it, we don't need it, or we're too busy.
Why do you think people don't refer us? It's because if you don't ask, they don't think you need it.
Right.
And when you say it was my pleasure, or you say, hey, you know what, it's my job, or you just give them just a canned response, people don't assume you need anything unless you ask them for it. That's why 60% of the population will gladly help you if you ask them for it.
Right. Okay.
Go be referable, Holly.
I got it. I'm trying. I'm processing it. Send me the recording, please, and I promise I'll listen to it more.
I will. I'll send you the recording. I'll convert it.
I'm going to make my husband role play with me this weekend. I'm sure he'll be thrilled.
I'm sure he will. Do it while you guys are making dinner or something. It'll be funny to listen to.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough for your time. I'm eternally grateful.
Oh, Holly, it's been my pleasure. Just do me a favor. Talk to somebody else that you know and tell them what a great job I do, and I'd love to coach somebody else that you know.
I will. Now, will we continue to meet on Mondays and Thursdays?
I think we do this until you say, Doug, I'm sick and tired of you.
Okay, good. I just didn't know it, but the way you said that, I didn't know if you were wrapping it up with me or
Oh,
not. So
oh.
that's what I wanted to make sure. I'm like, okay, are we done?
I want you at those big branch manager meetings to keep singing my praises to the other branch managers because I want to build up my client base through
Right.
people's endorsements. You're going to do the same thing I'm asking for you to ask your clients and realtors. I want you to tell people about me and what a great impact I'm having. If I'm delivering the value that you're looking for, just don't keep me a secret to the other people in our company. That's all I want.
I promise you I won't.
I appreciate that, Holly. That's all I
I
care
kind of
about.
want to from an awards perspective, from a selfish perspective. I'm just kidding, but I
Right.
promise I won't.
Awesome.
I promise I won't. I promise. You even have it recorded. I promise I won't. Well, wonderful. Well, like I said, thank you again. I appreciate you recording them and sending them to me, and we will talk on Monday.
Talk to you Monday.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.